The Montana sun hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows across Rodriguez Auto Repair like fingers reaching toward secrets best left buried. Maya Rodriguez wiped her grease-stained hands on a faded red rag, leaving dark smears across fabric that had seen 1,000 engines, and just as many silent prayers that her past would stay dead. "That's it, Mrs. Patterson," Maya called out, her voice carrying the easy confidence of someone who knew her way around anything with pistons and spark plugs. "Your Chevy's purring like a kitten now. Should get you through another Montana winter without trouble." The elderly woman beamed, pressing a tin of homemade cookies into Maya's reluctant hands. "You're a miracle worker, dear. I don't know what this town would do without you." If only you knew what these hands built before they fixed your truck, Maya thought, but her smile never wavered. "Just doing my job, ma'am." As Mrs. Patterson's taillights disappeared down Main Street, Maya surveyed her kingdom, a converted gas station at the edge of Ridgeway, population 2,847. The building had been dying when she'd arrived 6 years ago with a duffel bag full of cash and a fake identity that cost more than most people made in a year. Old Joe had been desperate to retire, and Maya had been desperate to disappear. It was a perfect match born of desperation on both sides. The bell above the door chimed, and Danny Chen sauntered in, his fishing vest still covered in dried mud from the morning's expedition to Silver Creek. Danny owned the sporting goods store 3 blocks down and had made it his personal mission to solve the mystery of Maya Rodriguez since the day she'd rolled into town. "Another beautiful evening in paradise," Danny announced, leaning against the counter with practiced casualness. "Say, I've been meaning to ask, what exactly do you do in that back workshop? The one with the padlock that looks like it could survive a nuclear blast." Maya had perfected her deflection over 6 years. She gestured vaguely toward the organized chaos of her main garage. "Hobby projects, restoring a vintage motorcycle, boring stuff." "Right," Danny's eyes sparkled with friendly suspicion. "Because boring stuff definitely requires soundproofing and those fancy ventilation systems you installed last spring." "I like my privacy, Danny." Maya's tone remained light, but something in her eyes made the conversation feel finished. Danny recognized the wall when he hit it. He always did. "Fair enough. Hey, poker night at McGready's on Saturday. You should come. You never hang out." "Maybe," Maya said, which they both knew meant no. After Danny left, Maya locked the front door and flipped the sign to closed. The evening ritual began, checking the security cameras she'd installed herself, making sure the motion sensors around the perimeter were functioning, scanning the street for unfamiliar vehicles. 6 years of caution had become 6 years of paranoia, and paranoia had kept her alive. The garage fell silent except for the tick of cooling metal and the distant howl of a coyote in the foothills. Maya stood before the reinforced steel door at the back of the building, her hand hovering over the keypad. This was the moment each night when she had to decide whether to remember or forget. She punched in the 16-digit code, her mother's birth date, backwards in military time. The lock disengaged with a heavy clunk. The workshop beyond was a shrine to genius and regret. Workbenches lined with precision tools that cost more than Danny's entire store. 3 large objects sat beneath silver tarps, angular shapes that suggested complexity and danger. On the walls, beneath dusty sheets, were blueprints and schematics that bore classification stamps from agencies most people had never heard of. Maya approached the nearest tarp and lifted one corner, revealing gleaming titanium and carbon fiber components assembled into something that looked like art but was designed for war. The PT-4 Autonomous Defense Relay, her breakthrough design, the one that had made her DARPA's rising star at age 26. The one that was supposed to save soldiers' lives by creating impenetrable defensive perimeters. The one that Dr. Eric Volkov had modified and sold to the highest bidder, turning her shield into a sword pointed at innocent throats. She dropped the tarp, the memory of that discovery still fresh despite 6 years of distance. The late-night security footage she'd stumbled upon. Her mentor, the man who'd recruited her from MIT, who'd called her the daughter he never had, loading her prototypes into unmarked trucks. The paper trail she traced to shell corporations in Dubai and Beijing. The sick realization that every breakthrough she'd celebrated had been monetized and weaponized by the man she'd trusted most. And when she'd tried to report it, when she'd gone to oversight with evidence, the conspiracy ran deeper than she'd imagined. Suddenly, she was the one under investigation. Her security clearance was suspended. Volkov painted her as unstable, jealous, a brilliant mind cracking under pressure. Then the car bomb outside her Arlington apartment. Pure luck had kept her from that car, a last-minute decision to walk to the coffee shop instead of drive. She'd watched from a cafe window as her Honda Civic became a fireball, and she'd understood with perfect clarity. They thought she was dead, and that's how she needed to stay. Maya locked the workshop and returned to the main garage, climbing the narrow stairs to her apartment above. Spartan furniture, go bag always packed by the door, fake passports hidden in 3 separate locations. A life built on the foundation of survival rather than living. She was heating up leftover Chinese food when headlights swept across her window, unusual for this time of night on the empty highway. Maya moved to the glass, careful to stay in shadow. A black SUV had stopped on the shoulder, steam rising from its hood in the twilight. 3 men emerged, their movements synchronized in a way that made Maya's pulse quicken. Even from a distance, she recognized the economy of motion, the tactical awareness, the way they surveyed their surroundings before approaching the vehicle. Military, special operations if she had to guess. They began pushing the SUV toward her garage. Maya's hand instinctively moved to the burner phone hidden behind her bookshelf, the one with a single number programmed, an emergency exit she'd hoped never to use. Her 6-year refuge was about to be tested. The past, it seemed, had finally learned to read a map. Maya watched through the window as the 3 men pushed the disabled SUV closer, their coordination perfect despite the vehicle's weight. She recognized that kind of teamwork, hundreds of hours of training distilled into unconscious synchronization. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her hands remained steady. 6 years of practice at appearing calm when the world was tilting sideways. The knock on her door came precisely as expected, firm, professional, 3 evenly spaced raps. She descended the stairs, wiping imaginary grease on her coveralls, buying precious seconds to arrange her face into the expression of Maya Rodriguez, helpful small-town mechanic, nothing more. When she opened the door, the 3 men stood in a tactical triangle formation that no civilian fishing party would ever use. "Sorry to bother you so late," the lead man said, his voice carrying authority barely concealed beneath politeness. "We broke down about 2 miles back, saw your sign. Any chance you're still open?" He was mid-30s, Latino, with the kind of physically fit build that spoke of daily PT and operational readiness. His companions flanked him, one black, one white, both with the same alert eyes that constantly scanned for threats. They wore civilian clothes, but the tactical pants had reinforced knees, and their hiking boots were military issue trying to pass as commercial. "Let me take a look," Maya said, grabbing her tool kit and flashlight. "Push her into the bay." As they maneuvered the SUV into position, Maya's trained eye cataloged everything they weren't saying. The vehicle was a late-model Chevy Tahoe, but the suspension sat too high for factory specs. Reinforced, she noted, probably armored. The windows were thicker than standard, ballistic glass. And there, barely visible beneath the passenger seat, the edge of a tactical rifle case. "I'm Jack," the lead man offered, extending his hand. His grip was firm, controlled. "This is Ramirez and Miller." "Maya Rodriguez." She shook each hand in turn, nodding the calluses consistent with weapons training and fast roping. "What brings you boys to Montana?" "Fishing trip," Jack said easily, too easily. Heard the trout are running in the Gallatin. Maya popped the hood, biting back the observation that the Gallatin was 60 miles in the wrong direction from where they were headed. Well, let's see what we've got here. The engine compartment told a more honest story than their cover story ever could. Standard V8, but with modifications that made her pulse race. A upgraded cooling system, reinforced engine mounts, and most tellingly, a military-grade communications array tucked behind the battery. She'd seen similar setups in DARPA's mobile command vehicles. "Fuel pumps shot," Maya announced, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. "I can rig something temporary tonight, but you'll need a full replacement. That'll take until tomorrow afternoon. Have to order the part." The three men exchanged glances, a conversation happening in the silence between them. Finally, Jack nodded. "Do what you can for tonight. We'll come back in the morning." As Maya worked, she felt their eyes on her. They were assessing her the same way she was assessing them, looking for inconsistencies, for the tells that separated truth from cover. When she reached for a specific wrench without looking, muscle memory from thousands of repairs, she caught Miller watching with the kind of attention that meant he'd noticed her unconscious competence. "You've done this before," Miller observed, his voice carrying a hint of southern drawl. "Once or twice," Maya replied, keeping her tone light. "Been fixing engines since I was 16. It was true, as far as it went. What she didn't mention was that by 23, she'd been designing next-generation propulsion systems for autonomous combat vehicles. That her doctoral thesis on microhydraulics had been immediately classified. That her hands, now covered in ordinary grease, had once manipulated components so sensitive they required clean room environments and security clearances that went beyond top secret. Ramirez's phone buzzed. He stepped away to answer, but not before Maya caught the encrypted ringtone, a specific frequency pattern used by JSOC Communications, Joint Special Operations Command. These weren't just military. These were Tier 1 operators, Navy SEALs, Delta Force, or one of the other units that officially didn't exist. "You're all set for now," Maya announced, closing the hood. "Should get you wherever you need to go, but come back tomorrow before you head out on any long drives." Jack handed her a credit card, personal, not government issue, smart. No paper trail to official operations. "Appreciate it. What time should we swing by?" "After 2, I've got a few jobs ahead of you." As Jack reached for his wallet, Miller leaned against the workbench, and his elbow caught the edge of a tablet computer they'd left sitting there. The device tumbled, and the screen flashed to life before Miller could grab it. Maya's heart stopped. On the screen, for just 2 seconds before Miller locked it, was a classified DARPA schematic, her schematic. The PT-7 acoustic disorientation device, a prototype she designed but never built. The blueprint was incomplete, like someone had tried to reverse engineer her work from partial files. And there, in the corner, a target designation she recognized, a critical infrastructure site marked with coordinates and a timeline. Her eyes snapped up to find Jack watching her, his expression unreadable. The moment stretched between them like a wire pulled too tight. Had she seen it? Did she recognize it? And most importantly, did she understand what it meant? "Sorry about that," Miller said quickly, pocketing the tablet. "Clumsy." "No problem," Maya replied, but her voice sounded distant to her own ears. They paid in cash. Jack pulled out bills instead of using the card, another sign of operational security, and thanked her with the kind of professional courtesy that felt rehearsed. As the Tahoe's engine rumbled to life and they drove into the darkness, Maya stood in her garage bay, hands trembling despite her best efforts. They were hunting something. Someone was using her designs, the weapons technology she tried to bury along with her old identity. And these men, these elite operators, they were tracking it. Which meant 2 possibilities, both terrifying. Either they knew who she was and were testing her, or they had no idea that the woman who just fixed their fuel pump was the same engineer who designed the weapon they were hunting. Maya locked the garage doors, checking each lock twice, then 3 times. She climbed the stairs to her apartment and pulled the burner phone from its hiding place, staring at the single programmed number. Her extraction plan. The identity waiting in Vancouver, the account in the Caymans, the life she could disappear into if this one burned. But she didn't dial, not yet. Because on that screen, for those 2 precious seconds, she'd seen something else. A date, an activation timeline. Whatever was being planned with her stolen technology, it was happening soon, very soon. Maya set the phone down and moved to her window, watching the dark highway where the Tahoe had disappeared. 6 years of running, of hiding, of pretending to be someone ordinary. 6 years of telling herself that she'd done the right thing, that walking away was the only option. Now her creations were in the wild, being used for purposes she could only imagine, and the only people trying to stop it had just rolled into her life. Sleep wouldn't come easy tonight. It never did when the past and present collided. The question was, would they come back tomorrow for just a fuel pump or for her? Maya didn't sleep. She spent the night in her workshop, staring at the devices beneath their tarps, running scenarios in her mind. By dawn, she'd made coffee strong enough to strip paint and was reviewing security footage from her exterior cameras. The Tahoe had circled the block twice before leaving town. Reconnaissance. They were checking her out. The morning crawled by with agonizing slowness. She changed Mrs. Henderson's oil, rotated tires on the pastor's F-150, and rebuilt a carburetor for a rancher's vintage Ford. Normal work. Normal day. Except her hands moved on autopilot while her mind spun through possibilities and probabilities. 2:15. The black Tahoe pulled into her bay. This time, only Jack and Ramirez emerged. Miller was absent, and Maya wondered if that was tactical. One man held in reserve, watching from a distance, or perhaps running background checks on Maya Rodriguez while his teammates kept her occupied. "Right on time," Maya said, gesturing to the vehicle. "Let me get that fuel pump replaced." She worked in silence, hyper-aware of their presence. Ramirez pretended to browse his phone, but his positioning gave him a clear view of both exits. Jack stood too close, watching her hands move with the kind of attention that went beyond curiosity about automotive repair. "You've got good instincts," Jack said suddenly. "The way you diagnosed the problem last night, you didn't even need to check the fuel pressure. You just knew." Maya kept her eyes on her work. Experience. "Must be. I've seen trained military mechanics take longer." He paused. "Where'd you learn?" "Here and there. YouTube is a wonderful teacher." She twisted a bolt, perhaps harder than necessary. "You ask a lot of questions for someone on a fishing trip." "Occupational habit." "And what occupation would that be?" Jack smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Government contractor, boring stuff." "Right," Maya straightened, wiping her hands. "Because boring contractors definitely need armored vehicles and encrypted communications arrays." The air in the garage shifted. Ramirez's hand drifted subtly toward his hip, where a concealed weapon would be holstered. Jack's expression remained neutral, but his posture changed, became more alert. "You noticed that," Jack said quietly. "It wasn't a question." "I notice lots of things." Maya met his gaze steadily. "I also mind my own business. Your fuel pump's fixed. That'll be $240. Jack made no move toward his wallet. Instead, he pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, and turned it toward her. "Do you recognize this?" It was the schematic from the tablet. The PT-7. But now she could see more detail. Deployment schematics, target calculations, estimated casualty figures that made her stomach turn. Someone had taken her defensive acoustic technology and turned it into a weapon that could disable dozens of people simultaneously. "Should I?" Maya's voice remained steady despite the nausea rising in her throat. There are only 4 people in the world with the expertise to design something like this, Jack said, his tone conversational but his eyes razor-sharp. Dr. Chen Liu at Beijing Technical University. He's been under house arrest for 3 years. Dr. James Morrison at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. He's 78 years old and has advanced Parkinson's. Design a paper airplane anymore. Dr. Eric Volkov, formerly of DARPA. He's on our radar for other reasons. Jack stepped closer, and Maya forced herself not to retreat. And the 4th, he continued, is Dr. Sarah Kensington, MIT doctorate at 24, DARPA's youngest lead engineer at 26, designed 7 different weapon systems that changed modern warfare, suspected of selling classified technology to hostile nations, killed in a car bombing in Arlington, Virginia 6 years ago. He paused. Except she wasn't in the car, was she? Maya's world narrowed to the space between heartbeats. 6 years of carefully constructed lies, of practiced responses, of being someone else, all of it crumbling in the face of those knowing eyes. I don't know what you're. Your hands, Jack interrupted. When you looked at that schematic last night, your hands started shaking, not because you were scared, because you recognized your own work. He pulled out another phone, this one looking decidedly more official, and showed her a photo. Sarah Kensington, age 28, last known photograph. The woman in the photo had shorter hair, wore glasses, and carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd never learned to hide. But the bone structure was identical. The scar above the left eyebrow from a childhood bicycle accident. The distinctive heterochromia, one green eye, one hazel, that Maya now hid with colored contacts. Colored contacts are good, Jack observed, as if reading her mind. But you forgot about the scar. And your right hand, you have a specific callus pattern from precision tool work, not from wrenches, from micromanipulators and clean room instruments. Maya's throat felt tight. If you think I'm some wanted fugitive, why haven't you arrested me? Because we don't think you're a traitor, Ramirez spoke for the first time, his voice surprisingly gentle. We think you were framed. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. 6 years of running, of looking over her shoulder, of believing the entire United States government wanted her dead or imprisoned. And here were 2 operators telling her she'd been right all along. Why? Maya's voice cracked. Why would you believe that? Jack pocketed his phone. Because we've been tracking whoever's using these modified designs for 8 months. The pattern of deployment, the sophistication of the technology, the access to classified DARPA files, it all points to someone with high-level security clearance and institutional knowledge. Someone still inside the system. He paused. Dr. Volkov filed 17 patents in the last 5 years, all of them based on your preliminary research, all of them suspiciously similar to your classified work. He told everyone I stole from him, Maya whispered. That I was unstable, paranoid, that I fabricated evidence because I was jealous of his success. We know, we pulled the original investigation files. Someone buried your evidence deep, but not deep enough. Jack's expression softened slightly. You tried to do the right thing, Dr. Kensington. You reported what you saw, and they tried to kill you for it. Maya leaned against her workbench, 6 years of tension suddenly releasing in a way that made her knees weak. Sarah Kensington is dead. The government, the media, everyone. They all believe she was a traitor who got what she deserved. Maybe she was dead, Jack agreed. But we need her alive. Because the technology you designed, someone's planning to use it for something catastrophic. And you're the only person who understands it well enough to help us stop it. No, the word came out sharper than Maya intended. I left that world behind. I'm not going back. Not even to save lives, Ramirez asked. I tried to save lives. I tried to stop Volkov, and look where it got me. Dead on paper, hiding in a Montana garage, jumping at shadows for 6 years. Maya's voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. I'm done being Sarah Kensington. I'm done with weapons and classified projects and people who think their mission justifies any cost. Jack pulled out a folder from his jacket, old-fashioned paper, not digital. He laid it on the workbench. Then Maya Rodriguez should probably see this. Against her better judgment, Maya opened the folder. Satellite images, infrastructure maps, population density charts, and there, highlighted in red, Hoover Dam, Lake Powell Dam, Grand Coulee Dam. 3 massive hydroelectric facilities, each supplying water and power to millions of people. The devices we've tracked, Jack said quietly, they're being positioned at these 3 locations. Our intelligence suggests a coordinated attack planned for 3 weeks from now. If successful, the cascading failures could kill tens of thousands immediately. The long-term casualties from water shortage and infrastructure collapse, millions. Maya stared at the images, seeing not just dams but neighborhoods, schools, hospitals. Families like the one she'd come to know in Ridgeway. Mrs. Patterson with her cookies, Danny with his fishing stories. Normal people who had no idea that someone was planning to weaponize technology meant to protect them. "Why are you telling me this?" Maya asked. "Why not just arrest me, force me to cooperate?" "Because Sarah Kensington was a patriot who tried to stop her technology from being used to hurt people," Jack said. "And because Maya Rodriguez has spent 6 years proving she's not the person Volkov claimed she was. We need your help, but it has to be your choice." He placed a phone on the workbench, a secure satellite model. "My number's programmed in. Think about it, but think fast. The clock's already running." Jack and Ramirez left without another word, the Tahoe's engine fading into the Montana afternoon. Maya stood alone in her garage, staring at the phone, at the folder, at the evidence that her past wasn't just catching up with her. It was demanding she face it. The question wasn't whether she could help. She knew she could. The question was whether she could live with herself if she didn't. Maya didn't touch the phone for 3 hours. She closed the garage, turned away 2 walk-in customers, and sat in her workshop staring at her shrouded prototypes. The folder Jack had left lay open on her workbench, its contents screaming at her in red and black ink. 3 dams, millions of lives, 3 weeks. She picked up the satellite phone, felt its weight. Government issue, encrypted, probably tracked. The moment she used it, she'd be choosing sides in a war she'd thought she'd left behind. But hadn't she already chosen sides 6 years ago when she'd refused to let Volkov turn her life's work into instruments of mass murder? Her finger hovered over the call button. The workshop door burst open. Maya's hand instinctively reached for the wrench on her bench, a pathetic weapon, but the only one available. Jack stood in the doorway, and behind him she could see Ramirez helping a 3rd man out of the Tahoe. Miller. His face was pale, one arm wrapped in a makeshift sling, blood seeping through his jacket. "We need your help," Jack said, his usual composure cracked. "Now." Maya's medical training, another remnant of her DARPA days when she'd been required to learn field medicine, kicked in automatically. "Get him on the workbench." "What happened?" "Ambush, Denver." Jack and Ramirez lowered Miller onto the cleared surface. "We tracked one of the device signatures to a warehouse. Someone was waiting." Maya cut away Miller's jacket and shirt, revealing a deep laceration across his shoulder and what looked like burns, not from fire, but from something else. Something she recognized with sickening clarity. "Directed energy weapon," she whispered, examining the wound pattern. "Modified microwave emitter, military grade." She looked up at Jack. "This is mine. This is based on my PE-3 non-lethal crowd control design." "We know," Ramirez said grimly. "We walked into a kill box equipped with technology we didn't even know existed. Miller took the worst of it, but we all got tagged." He pulled up his sleeve, showing similar burns. "Whatever they have, it's beyond anything we've encountered." Maya worked quickly, cleaning and dressing Miller's wounds with supplies from her extensive first aid kit, another precaution from her paranoid existence. As she worked, Jack filled in the details. "We've been tracking these devices for 8 months, like I said, but we were always one step behind. Tonight, We thought we finally had a lead, a warehouse in Denver where components were being assembled, but they knew we were coming. They had defenses set up using technology that shouldn't exist outside classified labs. Because it doesn't, Maya said, tapping down a bandage. The PE-3 was never approved for production. Too many ethical concerns about long-term neurological effects. I destroyed all the prototypes myself. She met Jack's eyes. Someone rebuilt it from my design files. Which means someone has access to the complete DARPA archive of your work, Ramirez added. Not just the public patents, the classified stuff, the things that were locked down under special compartmented information protocols. Maya's hand stilled. That's impossible. Those files require biometric access from at least 3 oversight officials simultaneously. Even Volkov couldn't access them alone. Then he's not working alone, Jack said. And that's why we need you. We're fighting an enemy that's using weapons we don't understand, designed by one of the most brilliant minds in modern warfare. We need that mind on our side. Miller groaned, his eyes fluttering open. Tell her about the dam, he managed, his voice weak. The simulation. Jack hesitated, then pulled out a tablet, bringing up a video file marked with multiple classification warnings. This is from the NSA's Infrastructure Threat Assessment Team. They ran a simulation of what happens if all 3 dams are hit simultaneously with the kind of coordinated acoustic attack we're tracking. Maya watched the screen. Computer models showed the precise placement of acoustic resonators. Her design, she realized with horror, creating harmonic frequencies that would literally shake the concrete structures apart. The simulation showed the catastrophic failures propagating in slow motion. Massive walls crumbling, billions of gallons of water released in unstoppable torrents, entire cities downstream wiped away in minutes. The death toll projected on the screen made her stomach turn. 47,000 immediate casualties, 2.3 million displaced, infrastructure damage exceeding $400 billion. And that was just the immediate impact. The long-term consequences, water shortages, power grid failures, economic collapse, the numbers became meaningless in their enormity. When? Maya asked, her voice barely audible. 19 days. We intercepted encrypted communications. The attacks are scheduled for October 15th, 6:00 a.m. Mountain Time. Maximum worker population at shift change. Maximum structural stress from temperature differentials. Jack closed the tablet. We can't stop what we don't understand, and we don't have 19 days to figure it out. Maya looked at Miller, pale and injured on her workbench. At Ramirez, burned by weapons she designed to be non-lethal. At Jack, exhausted and desperate, carrying the weight of millions of lives on his shoulders. She thought about Mrs. Patterson and her cookies, Danny and his fishing stories, the quiet life she'd built, the peace she'd found in being nobody special, the safety of Maya Rodriguez's ordinary existence. Then she thought about the neighborhoods downstream from those dams, the families who'd wake up on October 15th with no idea it was their last morning, the children who'd never grow up because she'd been too scared to face her past. I need guarantees, Maya heard herself say. I help you stop this, but I don't get arrested. No trial for crimes I didn't commit. Sarah Kensington stays dead. Done, Jack said immediately. I have authorization from the Joint Chiefs. You're being recruited as a civilian contractor under emergency provisions. Full immunity for past alleged actions, pending investigation of Dr. Volkov. I work remotely. From here, I'm not going to some black site or military base. Jack shook his head. We can start remote, but eventually you'll need to be hands-on. The technology is too complex. Then the answer's no. Maya. Dr. Kensington, she corrected sharply. If we're doing this, let's be clear about who I am. And what I am is someone who's already died once for trying to do the right thing. I'm not putting myself in a position where I can be disappeared again. Ramirez spoke up quietly. What if we compromise? You work remote as long as possible, but when we need you in person, Miller or I stay here as insurance, someone you can leverage if things go sideways. It was a hostage arrangement dressed up as protection, but Maya understood the logic. Trust had to be earned on both sides. Fine, but I need access to everything. All your intelligence, all the intercepts, complete schematics of the target sites, and unrestricted access to the DARPA archives. She paused. And I need to see Volkov's recent work, patents, publications, anything he's filed in the last 6 years. Jack extended his hand. Deal. Maya stared at his hand for a long moment. This was the moment. Once she shook, once she committed, Maya Rodriguez would begin her fade back into Sarah Kensington. The garage, the quiet life, the safety she'd built, all of it would be at risk. But 3 dams, millions of lives, 19 days. She shook his hand. Get me a secure laptop and a satellite uplink, she said, her voice taking on the crisp authority of someone who'd once briefed generals and senators. I need to see what we're really dealing with. And Jack, if this is a trap, if you're setting me up, I have contingencies you can't imagine. Information that goes public if anything happens to me. We clear. Jack's respect showed in his eyes. Crystal clear, doctor. As Ramirez helped Miller to the Tahoe and Jack made calls on his encrypted phone, Maya stood in her workshop surrounded by the ghosts of her past and the demands of the present. She pulled the tarp off her PT-4 prototype, seeing it with fresh eyes. I built you to save lives, she whispered to the cold metal. Let's see if you can help me do that one more time. The secure laptop arrived at dawn via courier, a stone-faced Marine who required 3 forms of ID and a retinal scan before handing over the reinforced case. Maya set it up in her workshop, the space transforming from a mechanic's refuge into a war room within hours. 3 monitors now lined her workbench, displaying classified intelligence feeds, satellite imagery, and encrypted communications from Jack's team. Miller remained in Ridgeway as their agreed-upon insurance, recovering in the motel down the street, while Jack and Ramirez coordinated from a temporary operations base in Colorado Springs. For 5 days, Maya lived in 2 worlds. By day, she was still the town mechanic, fixing transmissions, rotating tires, smiling at customers. By night, she was Dr. Sarah Kensington again, analyzing weapons signatures and predicting attack patterns with the precision that had once made her DARPA's most valuable asset. The work was grimly familiar. She traced device signatures from surveillance footage, identifying the specific harmonic frequencies that marked her designs. Each discovery was like finding her fingerprints at a crime scene, evidence of genius perverted into something monstrous. The acoustic resonators at the Hoover Dam site, Maya said during a video call on the 4th night, her image pixelated on Jack's screen. They're positioned wrong for maximum structural damage. See here. She highlighted sections of the dam schematic. If I wanted to bring down the dam, I'd place them at these stress points instead. Jack leaned closer to his screen. So they don't know what they're doing. Or they're not trying to destroy the dam. Not completely. Maya ran calculations, her fingers flying across the keyboard. These positions would create catastrophic damage but controlled collapse, like they want partial destruction, not total failure. Why? Ramirez asked from off-screen. I don't know yet, but it changes everything about how we stop them. Maya pulled up more data. I need eyes on the other 2 sites. If the patterns match, we're dealing with something more sophisticated than terrorism. This is strategic infrastructure disruption, not mass casualty attack. That distinction should have been reassuring. It wasn't. On the 5th day, Jack's team got a break. Intercepted communications led them to a warehouse outside Denver, different from the one where they'd been ambushed, but related. A location where final assembly of the dam devices was supposedly taking place. We're going in tonight, Jack informed her via secure call. Can you monitor from your end? We'll have bodycam feeds. Maya pulled up the live streams, watching through the eyes of 6 operators as they approached the warehouse. Night vision turned the world green and ghostly. Her heart hammered as they breached the doors, weapons raised, moving with the fluid precision of elite soldiers. The warehouse was empty, just shipping containers and industrial equipment. "It's a decoy," Maya said into her headset. "Get out now." But her warning came seconds too late. The high-pitched whine started first, a frequency she recognized instantly. Her PE-3 directed energy weapon, but modified, amplified beyond anything she designed. Through the bodycam feeds, Maya watched in horror as the operators staggered, dropping to their knees. "Acoustic disorientation device activating," Maya shouted, her fingers already working to triangulate the source. "It's coming from the ceiling, northwest corner. You have to destroy the emitter or it'll." The scream that came through her speakers made her blood freeze. Not Jack or Ramirez, one of the other team members, a man named Chen. The frequency had shifted, targeting in her ear structures, causing catastrophic disorientation and pain. Through Chen's tumbling bodycam, Maya saw flashes of chaos. Operators vomiting from vertigo, blood streaming from ears, Jack trying to coordinate while barely able to stand. Then more devices activated, microwave emitters, sonic disruptors, a symphony of her stolen technology turned into a killing field. "Ramirez, you're 3 o'clock," Maya called out, tracking heat signatures through the warehouse's own security feeds she'd hacked into. "There's a control panel. You have to overload it. Send a feedback loop through the—" The connection died. All feeds went dark simultaneously. Maya stared at blank screens, her hands shaking. "Jack, Ramirez, someone respond." Silence. She tried every channel, every backup frequency. Nothing. 20 agonizing minutes passed before her phone rang, not the secure line but her regular cell, a Colorado number she didn't recognize. "This is Maya." "It's Jack." His voice was rough, pained. "We're at Denver General. It's bad." Miller drove her to the hospital despite his own injuries not being fully healed. The 6-hour drive to Denver passed in tense silence, broken only by occasional updates from Jack. 3 operators hospitalized. Chen in critical condition with severe brain trauma. Ramirez with ruptured eardrums and second-degree burns. Others suffering from concussions and internal injuries. All from technology Maya had designed to be non-lethal. Denver General's ICU was a study in controlled chaos. Maya found Jack in the waiting room, his left arm in a sling, a bandage covering half his face. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in one night. "How bad?" Maya asked. "Chen might not make it. The acoustic frequency damaged his brain stem. Ramirez will probably never hear normally again." Jack's voice was flat, emotionless, the tone of someone barely holding it together. "We walked into another trap. They knew we were coming. Again." Maya sat beside him, exhaustion and guilt weighing on her like physical things. "I saw it from the feeds. They've weaponized my designs beyond their original specifications. The PE-3 was meant to cause temporary disorientation. What they used tonight, that could kill." "It almost did." Jack turned to look at her. "We can't fight this from a distance, Maya. You analyzing footage and giving tactical advice isn't enough. We need you there in person, understanding how these devices work, how to counter them." "I know," the admission hurt. "I've been thinking the same thing. These modifications, the way they've networked the systems, someone who really understands my work is directing this. Maybe Volkov himself. Our intelligence suggests he's coordinating from a compound in Utah, remote, heavily defended, completely off-grid." Jack pulled up a map on his tablet, wincing at the movement. "We think the final attack commands will come from there. All 3 dams, synchronized, controlled from a single location." Maya studied the map, her engineer's mind already calculating approaches, vulnerabilities, countermeasures. How many days until the attack? 14. 2 weeks. Maya thought about her garage in Ridgeway, the life she'd built there. Mrs. Patterson would need someone to watch her Chevy. Danny would probably solve the mystery of her disappearance in some wildly incorrect way. The town would move on without her, the way towns do. But 3 dams wouldn't collapse. Millions of people would live who would otherwise die. And maybe, just maybe, she could stop Volkov once and for all. "I'll need access to my workshop," Maya said. "There's something there I built years ago, a failsafe I swore I'd never use." "What kind of failsafe?" Maya met his eyes. "Every device I designed for DARPA I built in a master override, a kill switch. Volkov never knew about it because I coded it into the base architecture after the designs were approved. If I can get close enough, within about 100 yards, I can shut down every device simultaneously." Jack's expression shifted from exhaustion to hope. "Why didn't you mention this before?" "Because the override device is also a weapon, a very dangerous one. It can shut down my technology, yes, but it can also overload it, turn it into a bomb. I built it as insurance, as a way to stop my work from being used if it fell into the wrong hands." She paused. "Using it means accepting that people could die, possibly including whoever's holding it. We're already dying trying to stop this conventionally." Jack stood, steadying himself against the wall. "If you're willing to come to Colorado Springs to work with us directly, we can plan an assault on Volkov's compound. Put an end to this." Maya thought about the silver case in her workshop, locked away for 6 years. The device inside represented everything she'd feared about her own capabilities, the knowledge that she could build not just defenses, but weapons of terrifying power. Using it meant accepting that part of herself. But Chen was dying in an ICU bed because she designed the technology that nearly killed him. Ramirez might never hear his daughter's voice clearly again, and in 14 days, if she did nothing, thousands more would suffer. "I need to go back to Ridgeway first," Maya said. "Get the override device, pack what I need, say goodbye." She didn't specify to what, the town, her garage, Maya Rodriguez, or all of it. Jack nodded. "Miller can drive you back tonight. We'll have a full tactical team briefing tomorrow evening. Bring everything you think might help." As Maya turned to leave, Jack caught her arm gently. "Sarah, Maya, whatever name you're using, thank you for coming back, for helping." "Don't thank me yet," Maya replied. "You might not like who I have to become to stop this." She left him in the waiting room and found Miller in the parking lot, the Montana mechanic and the injured operator heading back toward a life that Maya knew was already slipping away. By the time she returned to Colorado Springs tomorrow, Maya Rodriguez would be a memory. Dr. Sarah Kensington was going to war. The Colorado Springs operations base was everything Maya remembered hating about her DARPA days: sterile concrete walls, fluorescent lights that never dimmed, and the constant hum of servers processing classified information. But now, instead of a pristine lab coat, she wore jeans and a flannel shirt. Instead of a security badge, she had a visitor's pass that felt like a target on her chest. The silver case from her workshop sat on the briefing table, unopened. Around it, a dozen personnel studied her like she was a bomb that might detonate, which, given what was in the case, wasn't far from the truth. "Dr. Kensington," Colonel Sarah Brennan said, her tone carefully neutral. She was NSA, assigned to coordinate intelligence for the operation. "Walk us through what we're dealing with." Maya opened the case. Inside, nestled in custom foam, lay a device no bigger than a hardcover book. Brushed titanium casing, a small display screen, and a biometric scanner that would only respond to her fingerprints. It looked innocuous. It was anything but. "This is the Prometheus override," Maya began, her voice falling into the confident cadence of an engineer briefing military brass. "When I designed weapons systems for DARPA, I built in a failsafe. Every device has a specific resonance signature coded into its base architecture. This device can detect those signatures within a 100-yard radius and either shut them down safely or overload them catastrophically. "Why both options?" asked Captain Rodriguez, no relation to Maya's assumed name, a tactical officer with 20 years of explosive ordnance experience. "Because I was young and naive enough to think I could control how my technology was used." Maya's laugh was bitter. "The shutdown option is for recovery operations. The overload option is for scorched earth. Destroy the technology completely so it can't be reverse engineered or reactivated." Jack, his arm still in a sling, leaned forward. "Range is 100 yards. Give or take. The resonance field weakens exponentially with distance. At 100 yards, I'd have maybe 70% effectiveness. At 50 yards, nearly perfect. Which means someone has to get very close to Volkov's compound." Brennan pulled up satellite imagery on the main screen. "This is what we're up against." The compound sprawled across 30 acres of Utah desert, a main structure built into the hillside, surrounded by 3 defensive perimeters, guard towers, and what looked like enough surveillance equipment to monitor a small city. Maya's trained eye picked out the modifications: radar-absorbent materials on the roofs, electromagnetic shielding on the walls, and what appeared to be automated defense systems. "He built a fortress," Maya whispered. "He's been building it for 4 years. An FBI analyst named Chen, no relation to the hospitalized operator, added from his workstation. Front Company purchased the land, classified it as a private research facility. No inspections, minimal oversight. By the time we flagged it, he'd already gone underground." Maya spent the next 6 hours integrating with the team, analyzing every piece of intelligence they'd gathered. Communications intercepts, financial records, travel patterns of known associates. The picture that emerged made her blood run cold. Volkov hadn't just stolen her technology. He'd built an entire network around it, recruiting engineers, bribing officials, establishing shell companies across 3 continents. And everywhere she looked, she saw echoes of her own work. The PT-4 defensive relay deployed in modified weapons configurations, the PE-3 energy weapon amplified beyond safe limits, acoustic systems she'd barely sketched in notebooks now fully realized and weaponized. "He has everything," Maya said, scrolling through the data. "Every design, every prototype, every experiment I ever conducted, even things that never made it past preliminary testing." She pulled up a schematic that made her heart stop. "This one, the RM8 resonance amplifier, I deliberately destroyed this design. The calculations were sound, but the ethics were impossible. It could level a building by exploiting structural harmonics." "Could it level a dam?" Brennan asked. Maya's silence was answer enough. As the briefing stretched into evening, Maya worked at a terminal, reverse engineering the terrorist cell's operational patterns. She was deep in code analysis when something caught her eye, a familiar signature in the encrypted communications protocols. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling data streams, comparing algorithms. The pattern was unmistakable. She'd seen it thousands of times during her MIT years, in late-night coding sessions fueled by coffee and ambition. "No," Maya breathed. "No, it can't be." "What is it?" Jack appeared at her shoulder. Maya pulled up 2 screens side by side. On the left, communications intercepts from the terrorist cell. On the right, academic papers and patent applications. The coding signatures matched perfectly, not just similar, but identical down to the individual syntax choices and commenting style. "Dr. Eric Volkov," Maya said, her voice hollow. "He's not just funding this, he's directing it. This is his code, his architecture, his fingerprints all over every operational detail." She turned to face Jack. "My mentor, the man who recruited me from MIT, who told me I was like a daughter to him, he's personally coordinating an attack that will kill thousands of people." The room went silent. Brennan exchanged glances with the FBI agents. Jack's expression was carefully controlled, but Maya saw something flicker in his eyes, something that looked like guilt. "You already knew," Maya said slowly, "didn't you?" Jack exhaled. We've suspected for 6 months. The investigation into the classified leaks, the weapon sales, it all pointed to Volkov, but we couldn't prove it. Every time we got close, evidence disappeared. Witnesses recanted. Files were corrupted. And me, Maya's voice hardened. When did you figure out I wasn't the traitor? The first day. Jack met her gaze steadily. Our mission was to locate Sarah Kensington, alive or dead. Intel suggested you might have survived the bombing and gone to ground. We tracked you to Ridgeway through a 6-year-old financial transaction, a cashier's check you used to buy the garage. Maya felt the room tilt. You came looking for me, not your broken SUV, me. The fuel pump was legitimate. We didn't plan that. But yes, we were there to assess whether you were the brilliant engineer who tried to stop weapons proliferation, or the traitor Volkov claimed you were. Jack's voice softened. It took about 5 minutes to realize which one was true. The way you lived, the life you built, the fact that you'd been invisible for 6 years instead of selling your knowledge to the highest bidder. Everything about you contradicted Volkov's narrative. So you used me. The betrayal cut deeper than Maya expected. You lied about who you were, what you wanted. We recruited you, Brennan interrupted sharply. There's a difference. Dr. Kensington, every piece of intelligence we have suggests Volkov framed you for his crimes. He sold your technology, pocketed billions, and when you got close to exposing him, he tried to kill you and destroy your reputation. An FBI agent, Henderson, according to his badge, stepped forward with a thick file. We've been building a case against Volkov for 3 years, but he's protected friends in Congress, connections in the intelligence community, enough money to make problems disappear. We need hard evidence, the kind that can't be buried or explained away. Maya looked at the file, then at the silver case containing her override device. The pieces clicked into place with horrible clarity. The compound, she said. You need me to go in there, not just to stop the attack but to recover evidence, prove Volkov's guilt. His servers contain everything, Henderson confirmed. Communications, financial records, video of him personally directing operations, but they're air-gapped, isolated from any network. Someone has to physically access them. And if I use the Prometheus override to stop the attack, Maya said slowly, the electromagnetic surge will fry those servers, destroy the evidence. The room held its collective breath. Maya stood, packing to the window. Outside, the Colorado night was clear and cold, stars visible despite the city lights. She thought about 6 years of hiding, of being Maya Rodriguez, of believing she'd escaped the consequences of genius weaponized by greed. But there was no escape. There never had been. I can modify the override, Maya heard herself say. Create a directed field that disables the weapons systems but leaves the servers intact. It's risky. The calculations have to be perfect or we lose everything. But it's possible. How long? Brennan asked. 48 hours, maybe less. Maya turned from the window. But I need full access to your fabrication lab, complete schematics of the compound's power grid, and Jack's team ready to move the moment I'm finished. You'll have it, Brennan said. As the briefing dispersed, Jack caught Maya's arm. I'm sorry for not telling you everything from the start, for letting you think we stumbled into your life by accident. Maya studied his face, the genuine remorse, the respect, the burden of command that came with making impossible decisions. You did what you had to do, I understand that. She pulled her arm free. But after this is over, after we stop Volkov and save those dams, I'm done with all of it. The government, the military, the whole apparatus that turned my work into weapons. Understood. Understood, Jack agreed. But first, we have to survive getting into that compound. Maya looked at the silver case, at the device she'd sworn never to use, now her only weapon against the man who destroyed her life. 12 days, she said. We have 12 days to stop him. Let's get to work. 72 hours until the dam attacks. Maya hadn't slept in 46. The fabrication lab hummed around her as she made microscopic adjustments to the modified Prometheus override. One miscalculation, one wrong frequency modulation, and instead of saving the servers, she'd fry everything within 200 yards, including anyone holding the device. "You should rest," Jack said from the doorway. His arm was out of the sling now, though Maya noticed he still favored it. "I'll rest when this is over." Maya didn't look up from her work. "How's the team?" "Ready. Ramirez is cleared for duty despite the hearing damage. Miller's staying back, still not 100%. We've got 8 operators total plus FBI tactical for evidence recovery." He paused. "And you?" "I'm not an operator, Jack. I'm the woman who has to stand still for 90 seconds while this thing broadcasts a resonance field that'll light up every sensor in a 5-mile radius." Maya set down her tools, finally meeting his eyes. "I'm the liability." "You're the only reason this mission has a chance of succeeding." Jack crossed to her workbench. "The team knows it. I know it. Hell, even Brennan knows it, and she doesn't like civilians in operational zones." Maya gestured to the modified override device. "It's as ready as it'll ever be. Targeted electromagnetic pulse, narrowband resonance field with enough directional control to spare the server farm in the East Wing. Probably." "Probably." "I'm working with 6-year-old technology modified in 48 hours. Probably is the best I can offer." She closed the case. "When do we leave?" "Dawn, 4 hours." Jack checked his watch. "Volkov's compound has shift change at 600. That's our window, maximum confusion, minimum response time." The pre-mission briefing happened at 400 in the operations center. Maya stood among operators who looked like they'd been carved from granite, hard, focused, lethal. She felt distinctly out of place in borrowed tactical gear that didn't quite fit. Brennan walked them through the plan one final time. Primary objective: neutralize the attack capability. Secondary objective: preserve evidence for prosecution. Tertiary objective: everyone comes home alive. She looked directly at Maya. "Dr. Kensington will be positioned here." She highlighted a location on the 3D compound model. "Within the courtyard, maximum coverage for the override device. The team establishes a defensive perimeter while she activates the pulse." "What about Volkov?" Maya asked. "If encountered, detain for questioning. Lethal force authorized only if necessary." Brennan's expression made it clear she hoped it would be necessary. The helicopter insertion happened under cover of darkness, fast-roping into the desert 3 miles from the compound. Maya's boots hit sand, and immediately she was moving, following Jack's team through scrub, brush, and rock formations, every sense hyper-alert. They reached the outer perimeter at 5:47. The fence was exactly as intelligence had indicated: 12 feet of reinforced steel topped with razor wire and enough sensors to detect a jackrabbit. But Maya had designed half those sensors. She knew their blind spots. "Cut here," she whispered, marking a spot between sensor nodes. 3-second window when the pattern cycles. Ramirez made the cut and they were through. 1 perimeter down, 2 to go. The second perimeter was where things started going wrong. Maya saw it first, a shimmer in the air that shouldn't exist, a heat distortion that defied the pre-dawn cold. "Wait," she hissed, grabbing Jack's arm. The shimmer resolved into a barrier she recognized with sinking dread. A modified force field using her PT-4 technology, weaponized into an invisible fence. Touch it, and you'd receive a shock that could stop your heart. "He upgraded," Maya breathed. "This wasn't in the intelligence." Jack made rapid hand signals. The team spread out, searching for a way through. Maya's mind raced through the physics, frequency modulation, power distribution, potential vulnerabilities. There, a junction box, partially concealed, feeding the field generator. "I can disable it," she said, "but the alarm will trigger. We'll have maybe 2 minutes before the entire compound locks down." Jack didn't hesitate. "Do it." Maya worked fast, bypassing safeties and rerouting power flows. The shimmer flickered and died. Immediately, alarms shrieked across the compound. Lights blazed to life. The mission timeline had just accelerated drastically. "Go, go, go," Jack shouted. They ran for the main building as the compound erupted into chaos. Guards poured from barracks, weapons raised. The SEAL team engaged, suppressing fire echoing off concrete walls. Maya stayed low, following Jack and Ramirez toward the central structure. An explosion to their left, one of Volkov's automated defenses, a grenade launcher Maya had helped conceptualize 3 years before she'd left DARPA. Shrapnel peppered her borrowed body armor. She kept moving. They breached the main entrance using explosive charges, entering a corridor that led deep into the hillside. Maya consulted the downloaded schematics on her wrist display. Server room is East Wing, 2 levels down. Courtyard for the override is. The lights died. Emergency reds kicked in, bathing everything in crimson. "He's locked us in," Ramirez said, trying a door. "Blast doors are deploying." A steel barrier slammed down behind them, cutting them off from the rest of the team. Another descended ahead. Jack dove forward, rolling under it with Maya and Ramirez barely clearing before it sealed with a resounding boom. "Comms check," Jack said into his radio. "Static. We're jammed, we're on our own." They were in a server room, not the main one, but a secondary facility. Banks of computers hummed around them, screens displaying data streams Maya recognized as coordination protocols for the dam attacks. And there, on the largest monitor, a face she hadn't seen in 6 years. Dr. Eric Volkov. He'd aged badly. Gray streaked his once dark hair and lines of stress carved deep around his mouth. But his eyes held the same sharp intelligence, the same calculating coldness. "Sarah," his voice came through speakers, smooth and cultured. "Or should I say Maya, I've been watching your little Montana life. Quite the performance. You almost convinced yourself you were nobody special." "Volkov," Maya's voice was steady despite her racing heart. "It's over. We're shutting down your attack." "Are you?" Volkov smiled. "You're locked in a room with limited air, separated from your military friends, and," he checked something off screen, "the dam attacks launch in 68 minutes regardless of whether my compound is operational. I've distributed the command protocols, multiple redundancies. You can't stop them all." Maya pulled out the Prometheus override, setting it on a server console. "Want to bet?" Volkov's smile faltered. "What is that?" "Insurance." Maya activated the device, its screen glowing to life. "Every system you've built uses my base architecture. I coded in a master override 6 years ago, something you never knew about because you were too busy stealing my work to actually understand it." "A kill switch." Volkov's face darkened. "Clever. But if you activate that, the electromagnetic pulse will destroy these servers. All the evidence you need to prove I'm guilty, transaction records, communications logs, video of me directing operations, all of it gone. You'll stop the attack, but I'll walk away. Again." He leaned closer to the camera. "Or you can preserve the evidence. Let me complete one demonstration of your magnificent technology. Prove to the world what you're capable of creating. Then we can discuss terms. I'll even let you take credit, resurrect Dr. Sarah Kensington as the genius she was." Maya looked at Jack. His expression was grim. They both understood the calculus, thousands of lives versus legal justice, an impossible choice. "There's a third option," Maya said quietly. She began reprogramming the override, her fingers flying across the interface. "I modify the pulse. Direct it only at your weapon systems, spare the servers. The math is incredibly complex. One mistake and we all die. But it's possible." "Sarah, no." Volkov's composure cracked. "That's suicide, the feedback from a partial override will. We'll channel back through the device. I know, I designed it." Maya continued working, solving equations in real time, balancing variables that had no room for error. Jack, when this activates, you have 90 seconds to get to those servers and start downloading everything you can grab. What about you? Jack demanded. I'll be managing the pulse manually, keeping it stable. She didn't mention that meant absorbing the energy feedback herself, that her nervous system would become the circuit breaker for forces that could liquefy concrete. Maya. It's done. She positioned the device, her hands on the activation controls. Tell Brennan she was right. I am the liability, but I'm also the only solution. She looked at Volkov's face on the screen. You taught me that genius comes with responsibility. Time to practice what you preached. She activated the Prometheus override. The Prometheus override screamed to life with a sound that existed beyond hearing, a vibration that Maya felt in her bones, her teeth, the electrical firing of every nerve. The device pulsed with blue-white light, and she became the conduit, the human circuit completing the connection between her genius and its consequences. Pain exploded through her body. Every synapse fired at once as the resonance field expanded, seeking out the signatures of her stolen technology across the compound, across the state, reaching toward 3 dams where death waited in acoustic frequencies and structural harmonics. Through the agony, Maya held the field steady. Her fingers danced across the controls, making micro-adjustments, directing the pulse away from the servers Jack was desperately downloading, focusing it outward toward Volkov's weapons network. She tasted copper. Blood ran from her nose. 60 seconds, Jack shouted, his hands flying over keyboards pulling terabytes of evidence. On the monitor, Volkov's face twisted in rage and fear. You're killing yourself, Sarah. For what? These people don't care about you. They'll use you just like I. The screen went black as the pulse hit his systems. Throughout the compound, Maya's weaponized technology began shutting down. Acoustic resonators falling silent, energy weapons powering off. The deadly symphony she'd unwittingly composed finally reaching its coda. At Hoover Dam, guards watched in confusion as mysterious equipment that had been secretly installed over months suddenly sparked and died. At Lake Powell, similar devices went dark. At Grand Coulee, the countdown timers that would have killed thousands simply stopped. Maya felt each deactivation like a physical release, pressure bleeding from her burning nervous system. But the feedback was building, electrical energy with nowhere to go, cycling back through the override device and into her. 45 seconds. Jack's voice seemed to come from underwater. Maya's vision blurred. Her legs gave out, but she kept her hands on the controls, kept the field stable. Just a little longer, just long enough for Jack to get what they needed, for Volkov to finally face justice, for her technology to be silenced forever. Done, I've got it. Jack grabbed the override device, trying to shut it down, but Maya's fingers were locked on the controls, her body convulsing as the energy coursed through her. Can't stop manually, she gasped. 90 seconds or cascade failure. Jack's face appeared above her, saying something she couldn't hear. Then Ramirez was there, and the world tilted as they dragged her away from the device. The override continued its work without her touch, the final seconds counting down. The last thing Maya saw before darkness claimed her was the device erupting in a final pulse of light, then crumbling to slag as it completed its purpose and consumed itself. She woke to beeping machines and antiseptic smell. Hospital. Again. Her body felt like it had been taken apart and reassembled slightly wrong, every muscle aching, her head pounding with a migraine that had its own heartbeat. Welcome back. Maya turned her head, too quickly, sparking fresh pain, to see Jack sitting in a chair beside her bed. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, but he was smiling. How long? Maya's voice came out as a croak. 3 days. The doctors said you suffered catastrophic neural trauma from the electromagnetic feedback. They didn't think. He paused. You flatlined twice during the flight to Walter Reed. But I didn't die. No, you didn't die, Jack leaned forward. And neither did 47,000 people who would have been killed in the dam attacks. You stopped them, Maya. Every single device shut down simultaneously. Volkov's network is destroyed. The evidence secured. Volkov was arrested 6 hours after you activated the override. The FBI has enough to put him away for multiple lifetimes. Weapons trafficking, conspiracy to commit terrorism, murder for hire. Your name has been cleared. Officially, publicly, completely. Jack's smile widened. Dr. Sarah Kensington is no longer wanted for anything except maybe a Medal of Freedom. Maya closed her eyes, processing. 6 years of running, of hiding, of being someone else, over, just like that. The government wants you back, Jack continued. DARPA, DOD, half a dozen agencies. They're offering full reinstatement, back pay, complete exoneration. They want the genius who stopped the greatest infrastructure attack in American history. No, Maya opened her eyes. Sarah Kensington tried that life. It turned her work into weapons and nearly got her killed. I'm done being her. I figured you'd say that. Jack pulled an envelope from his jacket, which is why I got you this. Inside was a Montana driver's license, a social security card, a birth certificate, all bearing the name Maya Rodriguez. All completely legitimate, government-issued legal documentation. How, Maya whispered. Called in some favors. The director of national intelligence owed me 1, or 12. Jack shrugged. Maya Rodriguez can now legally exist. The woman who owns Rodriguez Auto Repair in Ridgway, Montana. No criminal record, no classified past, just a mechanic who helped stop a terrorist attack and wants to return to her quiet life. Tears blurred Maya's vision. Why would you do this? Because 6 years ago, you did the right thing and got destroyed for it. You deserve a chance to actually live the life you built. Jack stood. The town's been asking about you, by the way. Danny Chen has this theory that you're secretly a race car driver. Mrs. Patterson has been baking enough cookies to feed an army, waiting for you to come back. 3 months of physical therapy followed. Rebuilding neural pathways, relearning fine motor control, fighting through pain that made her want to quit daily. But Maya had survived worse. She'd survived betrayal, assassination attempts, 6 years of exile, and a suicide mission that should have killed her. She could survive recovery. The day she was discharged, Maya stood outside Walter Reed Medical Center, breathing free air for the first time in months. A familiar black Tahoe pulled up, newly repaired, she noted with professional approval. Jack emerged from the driver's seat. Need a ride? To Montana, Maya raised an eyebrow. That's a long drive. I've got leave time. Besides, I want to make sure your transmission is still running smooth. He opened the passenger door. Thought maybe you could show me some of those fishing spots Danny won't shut up about. Maya studied his face, the genuine warmth, the respect, the something else that had been building between them through crisis and survival. Not pity, not obligation, something real. It's a long drive, she repeated. 6 days if we take our time. I'm not in a hurry. The Montana autumn had painted Ridgway in gold and crimson by the time they arrived. The garage looked exactly as she'd left it, except for the banner Danny had strung across the front. Welcome home, Maya. She'd expected questions, curiosity, the small-town rumor mill grinding. Instead, the town simply welcomed her back. Mrs. Patterson brought cookies. Danny regaled her with his latest fishing conquest. The pastor's truck was making a funny noise. Could she take a look? Maya Rodriguez, mechanic, had come home. Late afternoon, she stood in her workshop, the tarps gone, the prototypes dismantled. The past had been exorcised. These were just parts now, metal and circuits, genius defanged. The bell above the garage door chimed. Jack stood in the entrance, 2 cups of coffee from the diner down the street. Thought you might need this, he said, offering one. You're still here. Maya took the coffee, surprised. My team trains in Montana sometimes. Thought I'd check out the area. He paused. See if it's somewhere I might want to spend more time. Maya looked around her garage. The life she'd built from desperation and determination, the refuge that had become a home. Then at Jack, the man who'd given her back both her names and let her choose which one to keep. The coffee here is terrible, she said. I make better at home, upstairs. Jack's smile was slow, genuine. I'd like that. As they climbed the stairs to her apartment, Maya felt something she hadn't experienced in 6 years. Possibility. Not the suffocating weight of genius and its consequences. Not the terror of exposure and betrayal. Just simple, human possibility. Dr. Sarah Kensington had saved the world and paid the price. Maya Rodriguez was finally free to live in it. Outside, Montana's mountains stood eternal against the autumn sky. The garage would open again tomorrow. Engines would need fixing. Life would continue, ordinary and extraordinary, exactly as it should be. She was home. The end.